That was Vivian Daniel taking us through what Nigerians are saying on fuel subsidy. Like we said earlier, is it to remain or it should be removed? So you've heard it there, and the government should be listening to what Nigerians are saying. But this morning, we shall be looking to how the Federal Road Safety Corps intend to have a zero fatality during this Ember month of 2022. Ember months normally starts between September, October, November, and December. This is a period where people actually attribute some kind of a belief that accidents occur, more rates of accidents occur during this period. So we have in the studio this morning, he's always here each time we call on him to give us an update of what the command is doing. Although we start from the federal level, he is the FCT sector commander of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Mr. Samuel Oga Oche. Very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes, let's begin with your acting corps marshal. He briefed the other staff on Tuesday or so, and we saw where he was very emphatic about ensuring a safe Ember months for those driving on our highways. Can you take us through that very brief by the corps marshal?
Okay, you have just given analysis of Ember month already. We are all familiar with Ember month activities in Nigeria today. Of course, like rightly pointed out, people associate a lot of mystique to September, October through to December. Before this time, people believe that that is a period that occultic people, suck blood and all that. All that has been associated with Ember month. I think from experiences and from what the Federal Road Safety have been doing over the years, people have come to realize that, look, Ember months are just like any other month of the year. The problem we have with the Ember month activities is the fact that people are on a rush, people are always in a hurry. Not only that, people take advantage of us, particularly the transporters. They believe that that is the time to maximize the profit they never got from January to August. But then we are putting all that behind us now. We are beginning to realize that safety is in our hands, and we must do something to make sure that we are safe and cross over to the next year. I think that is exactly the summary of what the corps marshal mentioned in his brief to the general public.
So now, what are the strategies? Because I saw from the brief that there's going to be massive deployments.
Okay.
We are going to be seeing high sensitizations in parks. That has been happening for years.
Okay.
I will be part of it as the media houses.
Okay. Now, for us, I'll be very specific about the FCT because that is the place I preside. But I'm aware of the fact that once we get into September, all FRSC formations nationwide will recall all staff from whatever leave, whatever pass that you have been on. So issues of leave and pass have been suspended in all formations in the FRSC. For us in the FCT Sector Command, we are deploying this time around a little above what we deployed last year. We have 3,072 personnel that is going to be deployed throughout this period of the Ember month. We are doing that so that we have massive presence of the Federal Road Safety Corps personnel in all the nook and crannies of the FCT. Luckily for us in the FCT, we have additional logistics that have been given to us. We have patrol cars that have been released. And initially before this time, I have 14 ambulance points in the FCT. As I'm talking to you now, I now have 16 ambulance points in the FCT, spreading around every nook and cranny of the FCT to be able to respond to every emergency that could occur during this period. Now, the strategies were put in place. I divide the strategy in the FCT to three. We're looking at sensitization, which is very comprehensive, which of course your media and other media houses have been assisting and carrying along, every level of sensitization that we've been doing to ensure that people get to know the message of safety during this time. Then stakeholders engagement. Just yesterday, we had a meeting with all union members, transport union members. If you're talking of retain, you're talking of NURTW, you're talking of the Brekete family, taxi drivers, you're talking of the painted taxi, self-employed, all of them were gathered at Gwarimpa yesterday, it was a massive one because everybody turned out, and people are getting to realize that, look, I have a stake in safety on the highway. And I think I was so impressed yesterday that every union came to talk of what have been their problem, those that have problem with government, those that have problem with individuals, and all that, those that have problem among themselves, including the Keke Napep, all of them were available. That is the first state level of stakeholders engagement that we're trying to do. We're having a meeting with all the ministry representatives of transport, ministries, government ministries, to get them along on this very important aspect of ensuring that safety is ensured this year. I'm extending that to hotels, to all the NGOs in the FCT. We are doing this stakeholders collaboration so that getting to the peak of the activities of this year, we must have been able to get everybody on board to ensure that safety is ensured on the highway. And then the third stage of activity is the enforcement itself. This time around, I can assure you that our level of enforcement will be heightened. We are cracking down on overspeeding in the FCT. Just like I've said in the previous edition, overspeeding accounts for over 75% of all crashes in the FCT. And we're looking at that. Of course, the focus of this year's campaign is avoid overspeeding, overloading, and unsafe tires to arrive safely. So these three elements that have been responsible for crashes on the highway, overspeeding, overloading, and unsafe tires, will be cracked and attended to during this enforcement period in the Ember month. And getting to early days of January 2023, I will give you the good news.
Fine, we expect to get the good news, but I'm glad you mentioned that all stakeholders are involved in this. Road safety is not just for you alone, it's for the Nigerian public. Now, you made mention of deployment. Do you have flashpoints in FCT? Because good enough, the roads in the FCT are good, but like you mentioned, overspeeding. We've had instances where we cover some of these accidents, and by the time you see lone cars, just a driver and himself, when you ask, either brake failure or overspeeding. But do you have flashpoints in the FCT where you feel we are deploying more personnel, apart from the express leading to outside the federal capital?
I will just mention a few of the flashpoints, and I will categorize them into two.
Okay.
Now, the two flashpoints, or the two categories of flashpoint that we have in the FCT, we have those within the FCC. Of course, you know what FCC, that is the metropolis.
Yes.
Then we have the flashpoints that are identified on the express routes leading out of the FCT. Now, if you look at the FCC, one of the major problems that we've been cracking for some time now is the life camp roundabout through the bypass to Kubwa Road. It's a flashpoint. I'm happy that today, as I'm speaking with you, we made an observation and the minister quickly responded. If you look at the situation on that road before this time, it was completely, once it gets to 6 o'clock, through to 9 o'clock, that place becomes very dark. Fortunately for us, solar lights, street lights have been installed, so we have some level of relief now. But unfortunately, we have a situation where it is still a one-way, that is traffic, face me, I face you, as people get to know it. And because of that, people that are on that route are always overspeeding. And by the time you cross the bridge, the overhead bridge, there is a turn to Gwarimpa. That turn to Gwarimpa, people are never patient. In spite of the number of personnel that are deployed there, my men are always at that route. The policemen, the yellow fever are always on that route. But people are always in a hurry. And because of that, we notice that almost on daily basis, we record crashes on that route. That is a flashpoint within the metropolis. Now, if you also look at the Goodluck Jonathan, that is still being constructed, we still have a problem on that route as a flashpoint that will record unnecessary crashes. Just like we have rightly pointed out, you will see a crash and you begin to ask yourself, how did it happen in the first place? Because people are also in a hurry. And that is why I've mentioned the issue of overspeeding. Now, we look at also the problem around the SARS through to, even though it's still being constructed, but we also record a lot of crashes within the metropolis. Now, getting to the outskirts, we have a very major problem, a flashpoint on Abaji, Yangoji, through to Zuba. Unfortunately, just last week, we have been beating down the incidences of crashes in the FCT for some time, but we had the major one last week where 9 people perished. We are all aware of this on that road, and it happened early hours of the morning. So these are the flashpoints. Out of Zuba, as we're getting to Kaduna Road, we also have a major problem there, and then coming into Nyanya through to Kefi, we also have a major situation around that route. So these are the areas, and of course, our deployment for this period will take cognizance, will take care of these areas, including the other areas that I have not mentioned.
All right, so how do you deal with the issues of overloading and overspeeding? Because I remember before now, the speeds limiting device was one thing that the Corps was always emphasizing. Have you been able to implement it, or do we just have vehicles purchase it on their own? How do you checkmate the issue of overspeeding?
The overspeeding, 2 levels are involved. Just like you have rightly pointed out, it is mandatory for all commercial vehicles to have the speed limiting device installed. And luckily for us in the FCT, I can give you the statistics that we have above 60% of installation of the fleet operators that have their headquarters in the FCT. Now, there are some fleet operators that only operate terminals in the FCT. Their headquarters are in other states, Lagos, Port Harcourt. So whatever thing that we are dealing with, such fleet operators that have headquarters in other states of the Federation, you must need to deal with the headquarters, because the person that directs the affairs of those companies are not in Abuja. But we're looking at those that have their headquarters in Abuja. I can give you categorically that over 60% of their fleet are installed with speed limiters. For those that have only terminals, of course, we have our relationship with other commanding officers in the states where the headquarters are, and we're dealing with that. That is the first level of our enforcement of speed on the highway. And then the other aspect, which of course I have emphasized, that a lot of enforcement will be done this year. We just give out speed governors that are in all the commands in the FCT. I have 14 of them precisely at the unit commands in the FCT working under me. And then the outposts, 8 of them are precisely. Now, we are going to mount that in all the routes leading in and out of the FCT that I've mentioned. The Gwagwalada Lokoja Road, the Zuba Kaduna Road, and then the Nyanya Kefi or Nasarawa Road. And we have also realized that one of the areas that we have noticed government has done so much and is becoming a threat is this route from Buhari to Kaduna. Well, no, because of the challenges on the Zuba Kaduna Road, a number of people now apply that route, and because the road is relatively good now, we are noticing unnecessary speed on that route, and we are going to tackle that during this period as well.
Yeah, you talked about, you said speed governors. How does that work? Is there a new one that the command is introducing?
Not new. It has been an old system for a long time. You know, where our patrol teams apply is a device. That gives us the speed that an approaching vehicle is engaged in, and then we can flag you down if you have gone beyond the speed limit.
So, because I know most times when you travel on the highways, you see your men trying to slow down vehicles, and they flash you, and your men have to leave the road for their own safety. That's what I'm asking. So, how do you cope with such incidents or such drivers?
A lot of collaboration and synergy is going on during this Ember month. As much as possible, we know that whatever you are doing, whether you are from the Federal Road Safety or any other agency, primarily safety is paramount, and that safety goes to show that if you are not safe in the first place, you cannot rescue somebody else, and you cannot be of help to somebody else. So that is paramount in our minds to ensure that our personnel are safe. At the same time, we also know that we have responsibility to ensure safety of others that are using the road. And that is why the synergy between us and other agencies of government, the Nigerian police, the civil defense, that have arms, and we need to work along with them to ensure that those that are violent on the highway are brought to book. So we're doing that as much as possible. Those of them that we want to crush people on the highway, we will arrange this, including the military, to bring them to book.
All right. I think that will sound like a relief to some of your officers who are always on the highway, because we see them and we appreciate what they do. And now let's look at offenses. How do you penalize people? Because the issue of overspeeding, overloading, and the rest of them, the drivers, drunk drivers, you still go to parks to educate them on the need not to drink and drive, or probably not to drive overnight. Now, what are the offenses and the punishment for road safety violators, so that Nigerians need to know?
Okay, we have quite a number of them that the law, stands, to confirm that these are traffic regulations. Precisely. Let me just mention critical ones. We may need to, maybe in another edition, display it so that people will get to know that these are the
okay, sir. Sorry, I just have to hold your thoughts there. We'll have a quick commercial. When we come back, I'll take you on that very area. All right, welcome back from that short commercial break. We just have to pay some bills, and we still have the sector commander here in the studio. So you were talking about the offenses and punishment. Please go ahead, sir.
So, for instance, of course, we all know that for that vehicle to be on the road, there are some mandatory things that must be done. You must have registered that vehicle. So, where a vehicle is on the road without proper registration documentation, that is an offense. If you don't have your vehicle papers, driver's license, you are not supposed to be on the road. So that is one of the offense. If you drive against traffic, which of course is one of the problems that we're facing in the FCT today. Before I came into the studio, I was confronted with the problem of driving against traffic on Nyanya Road. It's a major problem, and we're addressing that. We're tackling that. I've been able to bring other agencies for us to be able to put our hands together. If you go there now, the military is working with us, the police, the VIO, all of us join hands to ensure that this is stamped out in the FCT. So when you are driving against traffic, that is an offense, and a ticket will be issued to you, and your vehicle will also be impounded. And not only that, if you drive while, if you are driving and you are using the phone at the same time, a number of people have come to say, but I can use my hands free, I can do all that. But people must get to realize that the interaction you have on phone is the problem. If the information that you get from the other side of the phone that leads to distraction could be one of the reasons why crashes occur on the road. And that is why we said there should be no level of interaction with your phone while you are in the traffic stream. So it is an offense to pick your phone, to use your phone while driving. Not only that, if you destroy government property, you drive dangerously to destroy poles, electric poles, water pipelines, and all that. Every of those ones is an offense. Now, even to some areas that people may not be familiar with, if a construction company is working on the road and fails to display adequate warning signs, that is a traffic offense, and a ticket will be issued to that company. If you see an accident on the road and you deliberately fail to report that accident, it is an offense. If a hospital rejects road traffic crash victims, it is an offense. So I'm mentioning this that people may not be familiar with. There are quite a number of other offenses that are considered. If you park your vehicle on the wrong place on the road, that is an obstruction. It is an offense. The Federal Road Safety Corps will remove that vehicle and you will pay the fine. So quite a number of them, 39 of them precisely, that are offenses that people must know.
Yeah, of course. The ones you read out are the ones we see almost on daily basis. Now let's look at your response time to emergencies like accidents. You talked about deployment of ambulances. Now, what's the response time for accidents seen in the FCT?
If you look at our deployment of ambulances in the FCT today, we have been able to take care of our response time to road traffic crashes and all emergencies. When I say all emergencies, for instance, there was recently a problem of house, whatever in Kubwa.
Yeah, building collapse.
Building collapse in Kubwa. And that may not necessarily be a road issue, but we need to respond. We are emergency response agency. So we can, our response time in the FCT now is between 5, not more than 5 to 7 minutes. Whichever part of the FCT that you're looking at, in fact, below 10 minutes. And the reasons are obvious. Like I said, our number of response emergency vehicles have increased from 14 to 16 in the FCT. Now, let me give you a description of where they are, at least for people to also have this knowledge. If you are coming into the town from the Kefi end, we have a response vehicle by the Goshen that is serving the FCT. Then you move in from
even
Goshen,
though that's Nasarawa State.
even though that is Nasarawa State, the nature of operation in the FRSC will take care, because whether you like it or not, the population that is living around Mararaba and all that are still the population that are working within the FCT. So the whole of that environment is still being controlled from my office in the FCT. So if you come in from that area and you're approaching the Kubo end of the Nyanya route, we have an ambulance point just stationed by the overhead bridge of Karo. Of course, everybody is familiar with that. If you are coming into the town, entering Abacha Barracks by the AYA, we have another ambulance point. If you are entering the Federal Secretariat just before the 3-arm zone, we have an ambulance point stationed there. If you are looking at the Area 1 side by the military, headquarters, that is Defense Headquarters, we have an ambulance at Area 10 stationed by the old parade ground. Then looking at the end, you are getting to the airport road, just by the city gate, there's an ambulance at that point. And then getting to the Olusegun Obasanjo airspace, you have an ambulance point there. So all these areas are deployed in such a way that we can respond. Getting out of the FCT, you are going to Kogi State. You have 3 of them before you get to Abaji. Abaji, that is almost the end of FCT. There is also an ambulance point in those locations. So the essence is to be able to respond to every emergency everywhere they occur in the FCT. These are beside the patrol teams that are also strategically located all over the environment in the FCT to ensure that every emergency is quickly attended to.
All right, before we let you go, sir, this other disturbing issue which everybody has been talking about, the problem of motorcycle riders, not just in the FCT, nationwide. I remember some time ago there was a proposal that the distribution of those bikes will be stopped to check insecurity, and even the Acting Marshal talked about it during his briefing. You mentioned the Nyanya exits, Nyanya to AYA. Most times in the morning, we see bikes trying to pass one way, carrying people into the Abuja. And I know there is a ban on motorcyclists in the central area. Now, what is the situation in the FCT? Have you been able to implement the registration of these bikes? What have you done so far to checkmate this indiscriminate use of motorcyclists, especially in the city center?
Okay, let me first of all use the opportunity to say kudos to the FCT administration. I'm aware that the minister and in fact the administration have been been a rallying point for enforcement on motorcycle for some time. It is a joint effort. All of us have been working together to ensure that the ban on motorcycle is enforced. And I'm aware of the fact that there's a restriction on the issuance of number plates to motorcycle because of the subsisting ban in the FCT. Unfortunately, just like we have said, the issue of motorcycle goes beyond issue of traffic. Let me describe it to be, to some extent, criminal. And, that is why a lot, for instance, as I was coming to the studio, I noticed a dimension that immediately I leave this place, I'm going to confront headlong. If you come to the Papage Junction, leading to that express, to the military, to AYA, a lot of motorcycles have started using that as a normal way, and it is one way. And honestly speaking, I've not really observed that for some time. And I noticed that today, and I'm going to do deployment to that location immediately I leave this studio, because it is a menace. It is something that is against the law of the land. And of course, not only against the law of the land, it is something that is capable of causing a lot of crashes on that highway. A situation where motorcycles are now facing one way on a very busy road, within the city center, it is a problem. We are working to ensure that these problems are solved. The motorcycles that are arrested are quickly handed over to the VIO, because that is the agency that is coordinating the activities of motorcycle in the FCT. And we're handing them over, and once we hand the motorcycle over to them, they are crushed, because that is the directive of the FCTA. So much is being done to ensure that they...
So what about their registration? Those who maybe want to use it legally, how do you go about the registration?
Because of the ongoing regulation, that is why I said I'm aware that there is a suspension of registration of motorcycle in the FCT at the moment.
All right, sir. Your final words to the FCT residents as regards safety on the road, sir.
FCT residents, I want to draw our attention to two issues. Number one, rainy season. In fact, it has heightened of recent, and unfortunately, people are not conscious of the fact that some things that happened in the past should be a lesson to all of us. The rainy seasons are times where flooding occurs. The rainy season are times where multiple crashes occur on the highway. So people must take cognizance of this. Make sure that your wipers are in good condition, your lighting systems are in good condition. The vehicle generally is in good condition, so that we can confront this rainy season. Not only that, between now and the end of the year, we are expecting that at least 7% increase will be recorded in the number of vehicular movement within the FCT. Now, because of this increase in movement in the FCT, we are expected to reduce our speed and also be more conscious, coupled with the security situation that is in the country, so that we can stay alive.
All right, thank you so much. Our Sector Commander of the FCT Federal Road Safety Corps, Mr. Samuel Oga Oche. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break here, and when we return, it will be time for more discussions.